I'm Martin Stringer, and here in the riding of Toronto Centre, this is, in this election, really a rematch, or at least a political sequel. Less than 2 years ago, voters here voted in a by-election, and they sent a Liberal to Parliament. Now, that's not a surprise. This riding has produced Liberals for more than a generation. But the NDP threw everything at it. This is a battle for the hearts and votes of downtown Toronto. The NDP wasn't successful, but the candidate is back and raring for a fight. And the Liberals have chosen a new, high-profile star candidate in a very prominent businessman. And the Conservative candidate is a member of the gay community, which may be a factor in this riding, which is home to the largest LGBT population.
Justin Trudeau, I think people, I hate to reiterate the line that you see in the ad, but I think people have a sense that he's a nice guy, but, maybe this isn't his moment to be Prime Minister. So in terms of the national race, I feel that plays very much in my favor.
How much do you want to win this?
I want to win this very badly. I guess I feel in many ways like my whole career, all my life has been sort of working towards this.
If I were a Tom Mulcair or if I were Stephen Harper, I would be very worried that they're the ones who are saying that they're going to do something that Canadians realize is implausible. They're saying, in particular in the case of Tom Mulcair, we're going to balance the budget while making new spending promises without making any cuts. Anybody who runs a household knows that when your revenue declines, you're not going to add new things in and not make any cuts. So we're going to have an era where the NDP is going, in the next few weeks, where they're going to have to explain what are the cuts that they're going to make.
I really do think this election is about the economy. We have right now a tried and tested way of managing the economy, and it's coming under attack by the other two opposition parties. And this election is giving Canadians a choice on whether they want to stay the course with a strong economy or they want to try reckless experiments in the hopes of maybe changing things, which I don't think is appropriate. We need to stay the course until the economy stabilizes, and the only way to do that is by following our strong Conservative plan.
Can I say hello? I'm Linda McQuaig.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you as well. You have my vote.
Hi, nice to meet you. You know about the election, I'm sure?
Yes.
Okay, great. We got to get rid of Stephen Harper, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you going to do a better job than Trudeau?
I certainly am.
The NDP's Linda McQuaig is well known in Toronto. She's a long-time political activist, journalist, and author of 9 books, many of which deal with the economy and income inequality. In the by-election, she finished about 5,000 votes, or 12%, behind the Liberal candidate, Chrystia Freeland, who became the MP and who's now running in the neighbouring, newly created riding. What's changed in the last 2 years since the by-election?
Well, quite a bit has changed. I mean, on the general landscape politically, obviously Tom Mulcair has become hugely popular. People have gotten to know him. I think they watched him in action against the Prime Minister, day after day in the House of Commons, and they were inspired by that. And, I think...
I got a sign in my window.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
You see it?
No, where is...
84 Carlton, right on the balconies.
Okay, well, I'll check that when I go by. Nice to meet you.
Okay, one thing's changed. You got even greater recognition.
Yes. Well, but that's a huge factor, right? Because it means that, like what you find in this riding is that, one of the lines I typically say to people is, we've got to get rid of Stephen Harper. Mm-hmm. And just about everybody smiles and says, yes. And so then the question becomes, which of the alternatives? There's effectively no Harper vote here at all. So I guess my point is that, the fact that Tom Mulcair now has this tremendous recognition and a kind of respect, I think, from the people, and a sense that he can manage the economy well, that makes a huge difference, right?
What about, someone has suggested that you really never even stopped campaigning. I mean, you've been out in the riding ever since the November 2013 by-election.
I think that's fair.
Are you guys voters?
We have voters, yeah.
You're voters?
Yeah, we're voters.
Can I introduce myself? I'm Bill.
Joe.
What's your name?
Joe.
Joe? How about you?
How you doing? My name
Good.
is Tom.
I'm Bill Morneau. I'm running to be the Member of Parliament in this area.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is this the first time? Or
Yeah. How about you? What do you do?
That's good. Oh, no, what I do?
Yeah.
I work in a shelter in downtown Toronto.
Which shelter?
I work in Costy,
Okay.
the migrant service.
Yeah. And how about you?
I'm a student. I just graduated from here.
From where?
York University.
Where'd you study?
International Development Studies.
Okay.
Bill Morneau is one of the Liberals' star candidates, a member of Justin Trudeau's economic policy team. Liberals hint that if they form the next government, he'd be a contender for the position of finance minister. He founded and runs Canada's largest human resources firm, and he's the former chair of the economic think tank, the C.D. Howe Institute. Morneau also served as chair of St. Michael's Hospital and Covenant House, a shelter for homeless youths, both of which are in the riding. A lot of the comparisons that are being made are with the by-election in the same riding. In the by-election in the same riding 2 years ago, the Liberals won. Chrystia Freeland won it, about 12% margin, 5,000 votes, a comfortable win. But that was when Justin Trudeau was 10 points ahead in the poll, and his personal popularity was a big factor. That's changed. So how do you think that changes the dynamic right now? The leaders are head-to-head.
Well, I mean, my overall point of view is that we need to knock on every single door, and I need to introduce myself to every potential voter so they can hear about my track record in the riding, which is significant, and for more than 2 decades I've been volunteering here. So that's obviously what you do. The national dynamic, of course it's changed. It's changed in a lot of ways, but most importantly it's changed because people are now getting closer to making a choice. And what happened in polls a year ago or 2 years ago is not really very relevant. Yeah. What I think is going to happen is people are going to look at our leader, they're going to look at our vision, they're going to look at our team, and they're going to come around and think that the Liberals are the right team. And that will help, but I'm going to do every bit of hard work that I need to do to make sure that people can make a choice based on my caliber as well.
It's not sobering, though, to see that, in some polls, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals you're now in third place, whereas 2 years ago, you were way out, head and shoulders in first place.
I never started doing this because I thought it would be easy. I think it's important to make sure we get our message out and really not to pay attention to those polls because, it's a cliche, but there's only one that matters, and that's when people are really going to make their decision. So the polls in the interim, they're just merely snapshots.
The Conservative candidate in Toronto Centre is Julian Di Battista. He has an economic background, and he's a senior analyst with a major bank. He's a member of the gay community, and he's been a committed Conservative since he was a teen. In the by-election 2 years ago in Toronto Centre, the Conservatives got only around 9% of the vote. What is your message? What's your pitch? What are the important issues for you?
For me, it's about making sure that somebody who represents this riding is representing the middle class. Now, I am firmly entrenched in the middle class. I'm not an executive. I work a mid-level job. I have no pension through work. All of my savings went to buy my first condo just a short while ago. And my big priority right now is making sure that I can pay the mortgage, pay the bills, and balance my checkbook at the end of every month, which is what I think a lot of people in Toronto Centre have the same worries and priorities. And that's what I think they're looking for in a representative in Ottawa, somebody who understands exactly what they're going through.
So why the Conservative platform then? Because, a lot of people are pitching to the middle class.
I've been involved in the Conservative Party since I was 12 years old. I first started in the 1999 provincial election, was the first time I volunteered, and I was bit by the political bug then. I have had so many great experiences within Conservative politics. I've made some great friends, and I've had so much fun that it's where I belong, and I'm so proud to carry the Conservative banner in this election. This
riding has a significant LGBT community, lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender community. You're a member of the community as a gay man, but that is a community that has not been very receptive in the past to the Conservative message and to Conservative politics. What do you do to change that? How can you change that?
I go at it one door at a time. I'm running a very grassroots campaign. I am knocking on doors every night, every day. I'm telling people exactly who I am, what I stand for. I'm meeting people for coffee. I'm meeting groups of people, making sure that they understand exactly who Julian Di Battista is and why he wants to represent them in Ottawa and why they should choose him.
Are there a lot of stereotypes to, because out and out, the community often says that the Tory party is anti-gay. Is there a lot of stereotypes that you find you have to combat?
Well, our party is very accepting. We're a very welcoming party. We welcome all diverse groups. In my opinion, I've always felt welcome in the Conservative Party of Canada, and I feel that it's that diversity that helps us have a stronger party. All the different viewpoints help make us stronger.
Do you think there's a misconception then in the general population that Conservative and LGBT community, the two don't mix? Do you think that's misunderstood?
Absolutely, I do. There are a lot of conservative values that members of the LGBT community hold, and I believe that they would identify with the Conservative Party if they were just to look at the issues. Stuff
Like Mike Duffy and the Mike Duffy trial. Are you anticipating hearing that on the doorstep? If you hear it on the doorstep, how do you answer it?
I haven't heard it on the doorstep yet. I don't feel that it's been an issue in my riding. I keep talking about our strong Conservative plan and how we're going to grow the economy and create jobs and make the lives of every Canadian in Toronto Centre better.
The riding of Toronto Centre takes in the very heart of downtown Toronto, the business towers, Bay Street, City Hall, and the Eaton Centre. It's one of the smallest and most densely populated ridings in Canada. The average family income here is in the top quarter of ridings around Canada, but there is a huge span of incomes. Here you'll see beautiful leafy neighborhoods like parts of Cabbagetown and luxurious condo developments, but you'll also find public housing projects and lower income apartment towers like St. Jamestown. Affordable housing is one of the issues here on everyone's mind. The riding has been redrawn. The changes weren't as major as in some of the ridings around the country, but they may well have an impact on the vote. I have to ask, this riding, like many, has been redrawn. It's not been redrawn in as major a way as some ridings, but they have lopped off the top part of the riding and they've lopped off the bottom part of the riding. They've lopped off the waterfront and they've lopped off Rosedale and what used to be the higher income part of the riding. How do you think that affects the NDP and the possibility of NDP vote?
Well, I know it affects us very positively. There's no question about that. The northern part of the riding that included Rosedale, that was very heavily Liberal. You might think it would be conservative. I think it used to be conservative at one point, but under Stephen Harper, the Red Tories in Rosedale weren't too keen on him, but they voted heavily Liberal. So I think, losing that part of the riding certainly benefits us. There's no question about that.
What about the waterfront? Down on the waterfront, there's a lot of co-op housing.
Yeah.
There's some public and affordable housing.
Yeah.
Is that a constituency you've lost?
Unfortunately, I'm very sad to see we did lose some great co-ops down there, and co-ops are one of our big strengths. Overall, however, we've maintained most of our co-ops. We still have a very strong number of co-ops in the riding. Overall, what we've lost down there is more than made up for by the pro-Liberal vote that we lost, fortunately, north of Bloor.
The biggest issues so far in this election have been economic. Questions like whether or not we'll have a deficit this year, and whether or not to run a deficit in future years, and how to stimulate an economy which was in recession during the first half of this year. As one of Justin Trudeau's economic advisors, Bill Morneau has been at the center of those debates. The big issue for the last few days and weeks has been the economy. Justin Trudeau's promise or commitment to run deficits of up to $10 billion a year for 3 years to fund a very, very large infrastructure investment. How do you defend that? Because that's coming under attack from both the NDP and the Conservatives.
Well, in fact, I position it completely different from the way you just did. So I look at what's happened over the last 8 years. We've been in a low-growth era ever since the Great Recession. It's really not improved significantly. The last 6 months, as you know, we've been in negative growth territory, so we're looking at challenging growth this year. And I realize that there's a lot of carnage from that. You have higher unemployment than you'd have otherwise, so lower job creation than we'd want, and a real challenge for people in the middle to get ahead. So for us, it's all about growth. And so our view is that we need to think about how do we grow the economy, and that's really both about helping people that aren't doing that well and, importantly, investing at a time when we're in low growth. So our view, and I think it's the right view, and it's certainly supported by the majority of economists, is that the only way to get to a sustainable, long-term balanced budget is by having a top line that's growing, so growth in the economy. If you just try and cut your way there, you're not actually going to change the dynamic.
Is it risky, though? Because some commentators have said The Canadian population, be it for better or for worse, have been so conditioned to see deficits as bad that no party can run the risk of promising them. Parties can accept them. Parties can stumble into them. Parties can say we're a victim of them. But for a party to campaign, as you're doing now, on 3 years of promised deficits, can you do it? Is that just too big a risk?
We don't think so. We think that people want to hear the truth, and they want to know that someone has a plan to address this challenge. So we've been in a low-growth era. Promising more of the same doesn't really feel very good. So what we're hearing as the contrary position is we're going to balance budgets by making cuts. So that's option one, which is the Conservative and the NDP option. Option two, which we think is the prudent course of action. It's the prudent course of action, is dealing with the low-growth environment and getting ourselves to a higher revenue stream down the road so that we will actually have a sustainable balanced budget in the long term. That's our plan.
The Liberals are making a lot of Thomas Mulcair's commitment to have a balanced budget in the first year of an NDP government. And Paul Martin and Justin Trudeau and Ralph Goodale and all the Liberals are saying, they're saying that Thomas Mulcair has gone over to the dark side, that he's become a far right, committed to austerity. He's going to cost jobs, so that this commitment to a balanced budget in the first year doesn't hold water. How do you...
Well, first of all, isn't that a bit rich, coming from Paul Martin, the master of austerity? I mean, his 1995 budget was just brutal in terms of cutbacks. I mean, that's where we saw the end of our national housing program that has so deeply affected this riding. Just the slashing that went on under Paul Martin. So for him to be saying that is just a little bit off. In terms of, Tom's commitment about balanced budgets, I think what's striking about this is that the NDP has actually an excellent record when it comes to balancing budgets and fiscal responsibility. I'm sure you're aware of that chart that actually was done by the Federal Finance Department that looks at all the governments, federal and provincial, going back a couple of decades, and shows that, in fact, overall, the NDP has the best record on fiscal responsibility. So this is not something new. I mean, Tom Mulcair's great line that I love is he says, "I'm from the school of Tommy Douglas," the founder of the NDP, who balanced 17 budgets in a row while ushering in Medicare. And that is what the NDP has always strived to be, the party that is fiscally responsible, but focused on progressive change.
But can he do it? Do the numbers make sense? Do they add up?
Yeah.
The Conservative Party is saying it's an $8 billion shortfall. Yeah. The Liberals say it's a $21 billion shortfall over 5 years. That with the promises for Thomas Mulcair to keep his promises, which means a lot of revenues that are given away as well, that he can't keep those profits. Yeah,
well, we'll get the exact costing, right, from the party. But actually, I do believe he can do it. And one of the reasons is because, of course, it's a question of priorities. We're not going to do income splitting. There's $2 billion right there. We are going to restore some of the tax room for corporations. There's been, so much cutting in corporate taxes in the past since 2000. We're going to restore some of that ground, so we'll get some more corporate revenue. We're going to clamp down on some loopholes, and the one I love is getting rid of the tax break for CEO stock options. So if you go after some of this stuff and clamp down on, people illegally moving money offshore, tax havens, that kind of thing, there's actually quite a bit of revenue there.
My name's Colin, and I'm your Green Party candidate in the upcoming election.
The Green candidate in this election is Colin Biggin. He's a computer programmer who's developed software and hardware and is working on a video streaming project. He also developed an app which tracks the federal election results over the years. So he's into politics and the environment. He helped run the Green campaign in the by-election 2 years ago, and the party only eked out 3% of the vote back then.
My name's Colin, and I'm your Green Party candidate.
Yeah, how are you, Colin?
Good, good. How are you? Would you like a coffee? I've got coffee available.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just, not only am I the candidate, I'm also your neighbor. I actually just live on the other side of the street.
Oh,
yeah? So I'm running in this election, and of course the Green Party, we're all about the environment.
Yeah.
Here you go. Would you like cream or sugar or anything?
Yeah, a little bit of cream sugar.
Okay.
Great.
Here you
Look at this.
go.
Oh,
Whoops.
sorry.
That's okay.
Take two of those is, yeah. And is there cream in there?
It's in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah,
it's
look, there's
buried.
one there. I can grab her.
There you go.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, you're welcome.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, consider voting for us on October 19th.
Will do. Appreciate
Okay.
it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Colin, tell us about this. You've got Tim Hortons coffee set
Yes.
up here. So
Yeah.
this is for the voters. You're on the doorstep, but you're actually offering coffee.
Yes.
This is not graft. You're not buying people's votes here.
No, I don't think so. I don't think a coffee will buy votes. Certainly not in this riding. No, it's just we do not have the budgets that a party like the Liberals or the NDP or certainly the Conservatives have. So, they've got massive campaigns. They've got, like Bill Morneau has signs that are just blanketing Cabbagetown. I don't even have the money to get signs yet. Hopefully I'll be able to get a few signs. All I can afford is, $20 worth of coffee in a morning to just say hello to people.
Why did you decide to throw your hat in the race?
Well, I've always been interested in politics, and I joined the Green Party because there was no other party that really represented what I believed in. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, it's time to kind of get involved. The Green Party needed somebody to represent the riding. I actually live in the riding, and I've been very active in the riding association for a couple of years now. And I just thought it was time to get involved. I think this is an important election. I think the electorate is in a mood for change. I think the Green Party definitely represents an alternative view that a lot of people believe in, but I think we're due for a breakthrough because I think what we represent is what a lot of Canadians believe. I think everybody knows that the Green Party policies are really where Canada should be going, but because we're a smaller party, it's hard for people to really back us to the degree that they really want to. But I'm hoping that this election we're going to have a breakthrough and we'll become one of the major parties.
In the by-election 2 years ago, it was brutal for the Green Party and the other parties because it was such a domination of the two main parties, the NDP and the Liberals. They gobbled up 87% of the vote. Why was there such a polarization? Why did it all get polarized into those two competitors?
I think there was, the odd thing was it was a by-election that really didn't mean anything because the government wasn't going to change. And it was a by-election between the Liberals and the NDP. And both of the parties just poured an incredible amount of resources into the riding. They just blanketed it, and I think they kind of just dominated the narrative for the people who were actually interested in it.
Because you were involved in that campaign. You were
I was
working
involved
for the
in it,
candidate,
and I mean, you could see that. They were just everywhere.
Why should they vote for you?
Why should they vote for me? Well, first of all, I think I'm a nice guy. I think, first of all, I'm an honest guy. And if I go into Parliament, I want to represent not only, of course, the riding, but I also want to represent Canada as a whole. I want to represent what's best for Canada. I want the country governed well, which I don't think we've had in a long, long time. I think MPs, first of all, should be allowed to vote their conscience on a lot of issues, something that the Green Party stands up for. That is not something that any of the other parties stand for. They basically come down with orders during the day, and everybody has to toe the line on it. The Green Party, I mean, apart from confidence motions, which, yeah, you don't want your government to fall, but, we're all about, letting the individual MPs have their say and vote their conscience and be able to represent their riding.
You do get...
On the environment, NDP candidate Linda McQuaig has gotten herself into a bit of a debate for comments made during a debate. Let's talk about an exchange you had on television. It was a panel, it was on a CBC panel, and you were asked about the oil sands, and your quote was, "It may well be that some of the oil will have to remain in the ground." And your challenge on that, and you further described it. Explain that comment, that some of the oil sands will have to stay in the ground.
What I was talking about, and it's so amazing that would be such a wildly controversial. Of course, it was the Conservatives tried to make it controversial. What I was talking about is the basic NDP policy, which is that, well, it's not even just NDP policy, basic sane policy, which is sustainable development. That we want to develop our resources, but it has to be done within a framework of dealing with climate change. And so, for instance, we have to put in place, a plan that puts us on the same track with, the UN track in terms of dealing with climate change. And all development will have to take place within that framework. Actually, the NDP, under Jack Layton, managed to get a private member's bill passed, the Climate Change Accountability Act, which would have achieved that had it not been killed in the Senate. So that, you know, this is well-known policy.
Is it the phraseology, though? Do you regret the actual formulation of saying some of the oil sands may have to stay in the ground? Because the Prime Minister is quoting that.
I have no regrets. I think the Prime Minister is the one, he tried to make an issue out of that, and it didn't really work. And the truth is, he and the Conservatives are the ones that should be on the defensive over this. We have lost 10 years in this country towards working towards an achievable set of policies to deal with climate change. 10 years because of Conservative inaction.
In the street, people are starting to pay attention to this marathon election campaign. There's reportedly a large number of undecided voters and voters who are susceptible to change their minds. Here in Toronto Centre, people are wrestling with what they're seeing and hearing from the parties and candidates.
I've been impressed by Justin Trudeau's desire to spend money on infrastructure, borrow while interest rates are low. I've heard experts interviewed about that subject in the past, and the fact that he would bring it up and state it as part of his platform. So yeah, you do pick up bits and pieces, but that caught my ear as something worth thinking about. So
is that positive for you?
Oh, that's positive. Yeah, I think it's positive. I think it's smart to spend, maybe go into debt a bit, and now while interest rates are low.
What about going into debt now while we're in a recession? Is that a good idea, bad idea?
I think sometimes you bite the bullet for a payoff down the road.
Is that going to affect how you might vote?
It might, yes, it might well. I was leaning toward NDP, but now I'm thinking,
Prime Minister Harper, I know there's a lot of things that people find difficult with, but we have so much, and we owe a lot to him for the job he's done over the past few years. And I'm going to vote for him again because I really believe in this time, especially now that we're in a recession, that it's very important to have somebody stable in there that at least has done it before.
There's a little bit too much hide and seek going on with the Canadian election at this point from the Conservative side. I think that it was calculated that it was launched this early, and there's a lot of things happening or a lot of things that are in question that are not coming to light, and I think they should be from the Conservative side. But again, it's still too early to say what's really happening.
Do you have anyone leaning? Are you leaning one way or another?
No, not really. I was thinking about that earlier this morning. Where do I fall? And I think normally I would fall in a position of being Liberal, but not completely sure at this point.
A lot of us are working poor, so we don't really make enough money. And Harper doesn't seem to give a hoot. So, yeah, Harper's not going to be the one.
Are you leaning one way or another in terms of the other party?
It is a toss-up between the Liberal and the NDP.
In the riding of Toronto Centre, for CPAC, I'm Martin Stringer.